Hello, everybody. Once again, welcome back to the Jimmy Brown channel. And I debated doing a post today, and the reason I did is I've been in a mood lately. I celebrated a wonderful weekend with my wife. It was our 28th wedding anniversary, and so thankful to have Helen in my life. She's a good woman. How she's put up with my ass for so long, I don't know, but she's a good lady. So, but we had a wonderful time. Went out for sushi, had a blast, and spent some quality time with one another. That said, had an interesting past few days, but mostly just looking at posts and everything, and reading newsreels for the first time in a long time. I have to be honest with you, I don't read the news. Um, it's just depressing, and just seeing everything that's happening out there, and it's disheartening every time you just see more and more and more, and you just become more disgusted in humanity itself. And I know that the news articles don't represent the mass, but it's interesting to me that the news articles and the news loves to cover the percentile of scumbags and turds that make up the planet when there's so much more beauty. And I know there's so much more beauty, but you isolate and concentrate on this one thing or these one types. And it just tends to, mar your vision. It tends to make you think and see in a different light than and ignoring what really is. It's propaganda at its finest, I guess, to some degree. Anyways, but I'm looking at a ton of emails. My goodness. So I'm gonna try to again. I group my emails. I group them all to different ways, and so that way I can try to attack different subjects at a time. But I didn't realize, and I mean, I literally got about maybe eight. Okay, I'll count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, 8. So I got 8 emails in the past week, all asking about, we appreciate you talking about Deliverance, but what about your other musical entities? And then I went through the other remaining 400 emails, and because not only do I get the Facebook ones, but I get some in my Gmail accounts, and I get some in my Yahoo accounts too. So, and I put them all together in different categories. And I haven't spoken much about Fearful Symmetry, and I talk a lot about Jupiter 6 because that's my new baby and that's what I do, and I just really really love the music that's created, primarily with my partner Jeff Seba. It's just really really fun, and we make a sound together, and it's organic and it's real. There's that buzzword, organic. Anyways, um, that said, I'll just talk a little about Fearful Symmetry. For those of you who don't know, the history of Deliverance, it went until 96 before the first official breakup, before it was officially over. The full-time band that had existed from 1985 all the way through till 1996 was done. And every time it regroups, its first season, it's just for a small portion of time, and that's just the way it is. It's the way it's become. But a lot of people don't know I gave up music, had to get into the real workforce and get a job and do all that. And anybody that knows me knows that I've always loved synthesizers, and I love keyboard music, from anything from Erasure, Depeche Mode. Very fond of a band called And One from Berlin. Kraftwerk. Noi was a little more guitar oriented, but they still had some cool keyboardish type stuff. Tangerine Dream. even Emerson, Lake and Palmer, anything with cool synthesizer work, ELO. I just always loved synths. Um, so it was kind of par for the course that I would eventually, well, that's what I originally wanted to do when I started doing music in 1984, 85. I wanted to do keyboard music because I was really digging what was happening with like Duran Duran and I know it sounds funny, and Flock of Seagulls and Missing Persons and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to do something like that, and of course, you know, the trilogy with Heroes, Lodger, and Low. Um, so it was natural progression for me. Synthesizers back then cost just ridiculous amounts of money. I mean, in the upwards of $3 to $5 to $6 to $7, $10,000 for synthesizers that were monophonic, not polyphonic, which monophonic means you play one note at a time. And then polyphonic technology came, and so in any case, always wanted to follow that, but grew up kind of broke, so my parents weren't going to certainly invest in that kind of money at that time. So guitars, it was for me, and but um, the cool thing was when I started Fearful Symmetry, it had a start and then it stopped, and people always ask me, well, what happened? So I'll just say it. I'll say what happened. Um, in '96 when it started, well, let me take it even further back. In 1994, I did a demo with Marcus Cologne and our manager, or my manager at the time, whose name was David Lavaggi. And I believe it was David Lavaggi's vision to start a band, and they called it Fear the Killer. And it was his and Marcus's project, and they were working on it, and they decided to ask me to come and lend my vocals to it. And so we did a demo together, and it was just so cool. It was a very dark, very brooding demo. Had a cool vibe to it. And that's kind of what started. It was very industrial, though. It was hard hitting industrial with heavy guitars. It was a la Ministry, Lords of Acid. It was just really great vibe, good demo. But we couldn't shop it, couldn't sell it. At least in our little realm of people, they weren't buying it yet. Um, and it was before it was really accepted in the mainstream. I mean, this was, take what Mortal had done and move it 10 steps ahead. It was really fantastic, and I was happy to be a part of it. So that was kind of my fielding on the side with it. And then Marcus, of course, joined Deliverance again for the last incarnation of it in 95, 96. And Lavaggi appeared with some of his keyboard work on, and sample work on Camelot and Smithereens. So enter 1998, 99. I started working. I mean, at that time, I never stopped working on music, but I was definitely trying other avenues. And I'd written a song called Snow, and that kind of started my leanings towards electronic music. And by '99, in 2000, we gained the interest of a label that was out in Ohio, and they flew us out, had us come out and work on a record. It never got released. And then I had recorded a demo of like 3 or 4 songs. And I had assembled a little group together, but it was primarily myself, a guy named Jason Renault. He goes by Jay. He's he did some work on As Above, So Below with me. He also did some dates with Deliverance as a keyboard player, backup vocalist. Great guy, really great guy. just feels more like part of our family than anything. He's a good guy. He's just a really good friend to the family. And oh, we got some thunder and rain going on. Anyways, so we and then David Gilbreth. He was a mainstay. I liked working with David. Young, talented keyboardist, or wouldn't call him so much a keyboardist as an electronic musician. Because when I think keyboardist, I think a guy who can actually just play. And you put through release sheet music in front of him and he can play it. That's what I think of when I think of keyboardist or a pianist. And guys that can make noise and but do it well and program and sequence and all this other stuff. I like to call them electronic musicians, and that's what David was. That said, we made a little bit of a noise together, and it was cool, but it just never worked out completely. So I was working on the next Deliverance record, the follow-up to Assimilation, that was going to sound a little more in line with what I was wanting to do. And I'd already recorded a good portion of it, and Manny had already laid his bass tracks. And I was so disenchanted with what had happened with Deliverance in St. Louis, and that'll be a topic for another video log. But I moved to Las Vegas and I finished the record there, and it was released, and it's called This Sad Veil of Tears, which is available on iTunes. It was a buddy of mine, Matt Hunt, over at Retroactive Records. He was kind enough to release it. He liked it. He believed in it. He thought it was cool. I just don't think he knew how to push it. And that's always artist lingo for nobody liked it. There was actually some people that wrote. I mean, I get a lot of fan mail on it. It's still to this day, but it was one of those records that was hit or miss, and I thought there were some good songs on it, real strong songs on it, actually. And I was writing lyrically from a real Kabbalistic point of view, because it was about 3 or 4 years into my study. I started studying Kabbalah very heavily, and Judaism in general. So I was using a lot of that metaphorical language in my lyrics. But I thought it was a strong record. It just didn't do very well. And then, buddy of mine in Las Vegas, awesome guy, named Henny, and his wife, Heather. Well, Heather was an aspiring singer, and Henny really wanted to make the dream come true. So he had asked me to write her an album, and so I, with pleasure, did it, because Heather was a great singer and is a great singer. And we put out a cool record, just titled Heather Leslie, and it was fun to be able to write pop music. I'd never really endeavored to do so, and it was cool. And I wrote and produced this record with Heather, and her and I worked really well together. And she worked on her lyrics, and she would come up with melodies and different vibes and different things, and then I would just kind of provide the backbeats and then melodies, and it was a fun experiment for me, and hopefully they were happy with their end result. But then Hanny said, hey, since we're going to be releasing that, do you want to release a record of yours? And I'd already been working on a lot of what would be the next Fearful Symmetry record. And it was called A Loss of Balance. And so I put that one out, which I was really happy with. There's a particular cut on there. It was a cover song of the song Love My Way from the Psychedelic Furs. I really like the cover on there. And now that one, I don't know if it's on iTunes. I don't think it is, because it was first released independently with my friend Hanny, and then a label in Florida bought it, and then unfortunately the owner had passed away. So I just think it's kind of one of those free floating albums out there. If you can find it, you can find it. If you can't, you can't. In any case, um, where was I? Oh, okay. So that was it. And then I started working on the third record called Non. And then that was it. I just never worked on it again. And there's two reasons, and I've gotta shoot straight with you about it. Um, I approached everything from as I approach everything the only way I know how. Um, so if I approach it the hard way, if it's the only way I know, then that's the only way I'm going to do it. So I approached this the hard way, which meaning I didn't know how to sequence. I didn't know about using pre-existing loops. I didn't know about all any of these other things yet. I just all I knew was, if I wanted or whatever, or I figured, you have to program, you just record yourself playing it and try to be in time with the click track. And then you take that, you clip that, and you just repeat it over and over and over. And then you just add other beats as you go. So to do one song would take an incredible amount of time because, I'm talking, I would record the hi-hat on its own track. We're talking hundreds of tracks. And when I was working with these other guys, and I'm telling you, it would take me countless hours to put one song together. And then these guys are doing full songs, full scale, everything. The whole shebang. It just needed vocal track in a matter of hours. They would say, "Oh, I'm writing a song." I talked to them at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then the next day they bring me over, and it's a complete song. All the way done. And I'm thinking to myself, "My gosh, these young bucks just got it on me." And then one time we were all together, and they installed a program on on my computer and said, "Let's work on a song." And I was like, "Well, why? Why don't here? Let's just get my keyboards and we'll record on the 4 track." And they're like, "Why?" And they put together a song in a matter of minutes. And all these pre-assembled loops from a program called Fruity Loops and Reason, and I'm looking at this and I'm going, "You've got to be kidding me." They were doing this in a matter of minutes, and I'm spending countless torturous hours trying to get the time signatures right and all this crap, doing it all by hand. And they were doing it with pre-existing loops, just choosing the key they wanted it in, just via a program. Dude, I'd never gotten more turned off in my life. Never. Never gotten so turned off with the mode of making music like that. And I just finally was done. And by the time Non came around, I was just really, really done. I liked listening to that music, but everything I was hearing now was tainted because I buy the new And One record and I'd hear it and it's like, "Oh, I've heard that. I've heard that sound, and it's in Reason, and I've heard that sound, and it's in FL4, and I've heard that." All of a sudden, I started picking everything out and realizing they're taking something somebody else did, putting it in their song and calling it theirs, and just because they tweak it and they play with the sounds and they put a sweep filter on it, and all of a sudden it's theirs. And it just, I don't know, I got turned off to it. And people don't realize the blood, sweat, and tears that went into this sad veil of tears and loss of balance, because that's all one thing at a time, one noise at a time, one hit at a time. It took me a long time to do. And like I said, I guess had I known from the get-go, it would have been a lot easier. It would have taken me a lot less time, and that would have been kind of cool. But when I saw how easy it was, and people that were non-musicians able to make this music, That's when I realized, yeah, this is not making music. If somebody who has no idea what, that an A goes really nice with a D, and then when you go to a D minor, it goes back to an F. You can do all sorts of these cool things, and they're just randomly choosing whatever just kind of sounds cool, but they have no idea what they're doing. They're just piecing together all these loops. Just turned me off, man. And I know it's another art form, and I respect it for that. Um, and that's why I respect guys like, Trent Reznor and Manson and the Cats in Ministry and everything, because they were doing this pre-loop days, where you just took everything else somebody else did and put it into your song. They were doing it the hard way too. I'm sure that they were using sequencers, which I was a dummy and didn't. But either way, but that's what happened to Fearful Symmetry. So it came, it went, and that was the reason I stopped. And that's probably why I haven't done a Fearful Symmetry record since. Partially because it just takes so much time. Strictly from an analog style band or a regular band. Imagine just as a drummer, sitting in there and they tell you, okay, just play your kick pattern and for the next 3 minutes, so you're just there, dun, 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 and then, okay, now we're going to play your kick, and you just throw the snare in there, and then, so you're listening to do, da, 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 and that's, imagine how long that would take to do rather than just playing. And that's what it's like to create a record for me in that realm. That's what Sad Veil and Loss of Balance are. And the 4 or 5 songs that came out of Non. So, well, actually, Non, I started using Reason and Fruity Loops real heavily, and I realized, yeah, this isn't me. I'm not making this music. So that's why I stopped. That's why I just didn't do it anymore. But that's what happened with Fearful Symmetry. And that's the story of Fearful Symmetry. So am I ideally and immensely proud of this Sad Veil of Tears and Loss of Balance? Absolutely. I'm even proud of a couple of the tracks on Non. One called Formula Number 6. And the other one was William Blake, a cover of DA. I'm particularly proud of those tracks because I did them the old way. Then there was, and there was another one called Is It Something that was done the old way. And you can hear it because there's a lot of off-time crap going on that's unintentional. But, yep, that's what happened with those. So, Fearful Symmetry was a great idea. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work. But it wasn't made the way you think. If for those that are electronic artists, they listen to it and go, that's so simple, that's so blah, that's so whatever. But if you realized how I had to make it and how I did make it, because all I had was old synthesizers and a drum and a DR550 drum machine. That's all I did it with, and everything else was just sound and sound manipulation. With harmonizers and stuff. Yeah, it was so that's what happened with that. And maybe one day I'll try it and attempt it again, but every time I flip on the radio, I'm hearing machines. I'm not hearing people. And I want to hear people making music again. That was the difference when you put on, Zeppelin 1 through 4. I mean, it's those 4 guys. And when Plant's not singing, it's Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham. I mean, it's just amazing, and that's what I miss, and that's where Jupiter 6 comes in. So, but we'll get into that another time. So for those several questions, the 9 most recent, and then the other 16 or 17 that asked, what happened to Fearful Symmetry? That's what happened to Fearful Symmetry. I just stopped because I became very disillusioned with how electronics music's supposed to be made, and I wasn't making it like that. So Again, thank you so much for everything. This is Jimmy Brown signing off here at Three Frog Studios. We are going to have some more segments, another guest appearance from George, Jim Chaffin. I see he's under the weather, so hopefully we'll get him soon. And some other surprise guests soon. Otherwise, you guys have yourself a wonderful day. It's 12:34 here in Alabama Central Time, so maybe I'll do another video later. Maybe I'll do one tonight. I've got a lot of phone calls to make before our next session comes in, so I'm going to do my best. But I wanted to get a video out there. It's been a while, so 25 minutes, not bad. Not 40 minutes. See you guys soon. Talk to you later. Bye.